This is a response to Heather Woods. I've often wanted to have a debate with a Christian. For a long time, I thought I'd be pretty good at it. Then I started watching debates, and people like Matt Dillahunty, who are very knowledgeable about philosophy and the Bible, has debates mostly with apologists. Something that I think you fancy yourself as an apologist. And I've always found apologists to be rather disingenuous and a bit dishonest, which I found you to be. And you were very generous with your time in responding to my video of 30 questions for the theist. And you got rather snippy at me for not responding to all of your points, because I only responded to a couple. And so I went back and I responded to everything that you said. And so you declared that you wanted to have a debate with me. And you wanted it to be a moderated debate with judges and all the hoopla. So I said, sure, let's do that. Let's have a Google Hangout and have a debate. And you said no. You said no because you were afraid. You were fearful of something that I do not understand, but you could not be exposed and couldn't do a video, and you didn't want to have it that way. You wanted to have your debate in that thread. And I said, I don't think it's a very effective place to have a debate in a thread under a video, because you can't have, at least not an official debate, not a professional debate, which is what you seem to think you wanted to have, because you can't spend hours or days or weeks in between responses. It's ineffective. And everyone else chiming in, it just is very distracting. But you insisted. And so eventually I said, create a new thread, pose a question, and we can have a conversation. We can have a back and forth on that thread and just the two of us. And I had to say this several times. And finally I gave up and I created my own thread and had my own question, which you've avoided most of the questions I've posed at you, like, please explain why you think it is rational to believe that there is a literal God. And you've avoided that, and you've avoided pretty much everything that I've imposed on you. But you did finally create a new thread, and you made a big hoopla about how it was going to be moderated and judged, and you listed everybody, and you had complained that I hadn't helped you find judges and moderators, which I thought was ridiculous, because who's the audience? You seem to think everyone's going to be looking at this, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But as an apologist, I had no interest in the kind of conversation you wanted to have, and I was trying to avoid all the nonsense that you were bringing to the table. And not only did you bring all the nonsense, but you just doubled down on it. But I did want to point out that you finally not had one statement, but three, and I responded to all three. Your three questions being, or statements being, atheism cannot be considered a worldview, which I did a video on, and I posted that, and you didn't mention anything about that. But atheism isn't a worldview. Atheism is just the view that there is no God. Worldview is how you look at the world. I don't understand how you can think that atheism doesn't have a worldview. It just seems ridiculous. Number two, Tom the atheist holds a more rational view of reality than Heather the Christian. And I liked this one because I thought I had a pretty good answer. I try to only believe things that are true and try to avoid believing things that have no evidence. I think that's a pretty goddamn rational view of reality. And I didn't think there was much more to be said. And third, there is no evidence for God. That is just a ridiculous statement. There is no evidence for God. First, you have to explain what God is. You have to explain which God is. And you have to explain what constitutes evidence. saying that there's no evidence for God? Yeah, there's no evidence for God because evidence points at something specific. Nothing points specifically to a God. There's nothing that shows the need for a God or creator. So I agree. There is no evidence for a God. Not too much to be said there. Anyways, so I gave you my response. And you talk about structure and how you would want this all to be set up. And all the pomp and circumstance. And had to talk to everybody as if this was going to be some big deal. I don't even think Matt Dillahunty gets into this much nonsense. Anyway, so I tagged everyone in, or you tagged everyone in the conversation. And I had my responses to your 3 statements. And you start off by saying, okay, thank you. I'm too busy to respond. You took the time to respond by not responding. Which I thought was pretty telling right there. So I made fun of that, basically saying I stumped you, which I thought I had because you had no response. You had time to respond to say you had no response. So you finally respond, and you've got to thank everybody. You spend a lot of time with a lot of pomp and circumstance, got to talk to everybody. And then you go, to begin, there should be little doubt this question needs to be worded better. It's your freaking question. I didn't even think it was a question. I think it was just a statement. But it needs to be worded better. You're complaining that I responded to something that you thought should have been worded better. But as Tom chose not to further discuss it, it is what it is. I asked you several times, pose a question, and I'll answer it. And you gave me 3. I answered all 3, and this is what your response was. Do make note, it is definitely irrational of Tom, in the first place, to accept a topic that begins with such an unproven, one-sided assertion such as this. Again, it is your fucking question. You came up with it. It is like inviting everybody to a party and then complaining to everybody what a shitty party it is. It's I mean, it's laughable how you respond to things. Let's see. Rather, Tom jumped ahead. Tom jumped in headfirst and took up to answering all 3 assertions while choosing the second as a topic of contention on this debate. Yeah, I responded to all 3, and you responded to nothing. I mean, you say a lot of stuff without saying anything, and you said nothing about my response. So we went back and forth a little bit more. Let's see. Somebody else respond about it. And to Tom Lee, to be extra fair to you, after all is said and done on the current contention, you can then open the new contention that atheism can't be considered a worldview. I already stated my view of it. I don't need to create a new conversation. Then you invite me, if you want to start with another opening, I'm okay with that. Let me know. Why? You posed a statement. I responded rather concisely. A rational view of reality. To believe things that are true and not believe things without evidence. What more is there to say? And then you complain about the question. Anyhow, so I teased a little bit back and forth. And, well, you finally gave your opening statement. And what a fucking opening statement it was. I thought it was funny that you start off with going, again, thanks to Tom and the judges and the community administrators and members for welcoming this structured debate. And you just go on and on and on, finding every apologist's argument for everything in the world you can think of, as if it were anything. You don't say anything about my statement. But one thing I want to point out is, first, due to Tom's position, he must reject or explain that any standard objective moral values exist or does not exist with a view of reality. Morality. You jump into morality. What's morality got to do with a rational view of reality? Morality's got nothing to do with it. Second, Tom's atheist position needs to also assume the existence of logic and use it in the frame of his argument. I need to assume that the laws of need to also assume the existence of logic. Are you implying that I was being illogical? Do you think it is logical to only believe things that are true and to not believe things that have no evidence? I need to prove that logic exists or argue that logic exists? Or what are you saying here? Let's see. Third, Tom needs assume that the laws of nature exist and that they are consistent. Again, the laws of nature. What are you trying to say? I mean, if you think my statement that believing things that are true and not believing things with no evidence is not a more rational view of reality, come up with a better one. You go on for paragraphs of just saying stuff that make no this is why I was avoiding having a debate with you, because you're an apologist wannabe. You are trying to play like William Lane Craig by saying a bunch of stuff, throwing a bunch of shit against the wall, hoping something sticks, just so you can say, oh, you didn't refute that statement that I made. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if you list off everything you have ever heard in your entire fucking life. You made a statement, you complained about the statement, and then you complained about my response. But you might have, I don't know, it got lost. It got lost in the sea of word salad and apologist nonsense that you spewed forth. And after complaining about that and going back and forth a bit, Tom seems very angry and troubled. I wonder why. Do I seem angry? Really? Do I really seem angry? Because I'm not angry. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed that I've wasted my time on you, because I don't even know what it is that you want. I don't know what it is that you think you're proving. I don't know why you think you need there to be judges and moderators to justify your existence, justify your point of view. You can't even answer your point of view. You can't even justify why you think there's a rational view to think that there's a God. You haven't said anything. You haven't. I don't know what it is you're thinking. I don't know that it is that you are thinking. I don't understand. Yes, I'm troubled. I'm troubled by people like you who said, oh, there's definitely a reason to believe there's a God. Okay, what's your reason? There's definitely a reason to believe there's a God. I mean, that's your reason is to repeat nonsense. You have yet to justify your reason for belief that there is a literal God. You have yet to explain what your God is. You have yet to explain anything. And you complain about the questions that you pose. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous and to complain to me that I answered your question and didn't complain about your question. What is wrong with you? Yes, I'm troubled. I'm not angry, but I am troubled that your view of reality is wacko. You have a wacko view of reality. When somebody tells you that it is better to believe only things that are true and to not believe things that have no evidence, your response is to have a word salad parade and avoid the point completely, and then complain that I didn't give you a word salad to jump on. Your view of reality is fucked up. I'm sorry. It is. And unless you can explain why you have a better view of reality, plain and simply, I have no interest in talking to you. I have no interest in responding to you, because I think you understand that your view of reality is messed up and you have no response. You lost this debate before it even started. The debate could not start because I completely stumped you with a one sentence response. You wanted a debate and you couldn't even open your mouth without just falling to the floor. You lost from the get-go. So I'm happy to have a conversation with you, Heather. I'm happy to answer any question that you have. But don't complain about the questions that you ask. And don't complain if I don't complain about your questions when you think your questions are shitty. So give me a question. Ask anything you like. Because I have a very rational view of reality. I don't believe that there's a God because there is no reason to believe that there's a God. And I've asked you several times to explain your reasons for believing that there is a God. And you have avoided that question numerous times from numerous people. So until you're ready to answer some of your own questions, don't complain about the answers that you get from me on your questions, especially when you think your questions are shitty. Anyways, I'm Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and I'll catch you next time.